Hey, all you sinners and saints. It's GJ MotorSage here. Weather's been kind of dreary, and finally got an opportunity today. It stopped raining long enough for me to take a look at the truck. Had a little bit of a problem with it lately. Smell of gas vapors, so begin to track down some of the problems. It comes and goes, and it's hard to get a hold of. It's kind of like certain problems in church that show up once in a while. Seems like these problems take fits, and we can't get a handle on them, and it takes some prayer and some work of the Lord's Spirit to straighten things out. So come along with me as we talk about these things. Hear the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. And Jesus asked them, "What are you arguing about?" And someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And it was often cast him into the fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for one who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe. Help my unbelief." And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him, and never enter him again." And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy was like a corpse, so that most of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out?" He said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." The Holy Gospel of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Malady. I remember many years ago in my own work having a similar episode where I was to contend with someone who had seizures. You see, I worked down in Philadelphia at the Bud Company, and at that time I had was a tool and die machinist, and I had a foreman come to me and ask me where I lived, and I told him where, far in the far reaches of Bucks County, up in northeast of Philadelphia. And he asked me if I would consider taking a passenger along with me as I went to and from work. He said the fellow couldn't drive and really needed a way into work. Well, I said, "Sure, I'll do that." Well, as it ends up, I had a young fella ride with me, and his name was Jack, and he suffered from epileptic fits, and because of his epilepsy, even though it was under control and medicated, he couldn't have a driver's license, and he had been episode free for a long time, and had hoped one day to retrieve a automobile license, but it wasn't something that was going to happen right away. So he rode back and forth with me for quite a while. And I saw what seizures looked like. Now, most of us, we see seizures as something that where someone throws themselves on the ground, they froth at the mouth, just like is described in the Holy Scriptures. But this fellow didn't do that. You see, he would just simply check out, and it was best just to leave him alone. He would check out, and he would completely shut down and remain stiff and immobile, and just only thing you could do is leave him alone, and within a few minutes or so he'd come back. He wasn't a danger. He just simply needed his medication or needed some treatment and needed some time, and everything would be all right. Well, this is the kind of individual I think Jesus ran into that day. It was attributed to demons because, well, they just didn't see medical science the way we do, and Jesus simply took hold of him and cured him of his fits, his seizures, and then went on their way. But you see, Jesus turned around and told the disciples that, the reason they couldn't cure him was that they just weren't strong enough. They weren't strong enough in faith, they weren't strong enough in knowledge, and they needed to pray about those things. So whenever we meet people that have problems such as seizures or other personality disorders or physical disorders, one of the things we need to do is we need to stop and think and make sure they're taken care of medically by medical professionals or psychological professionals, and we need to offer them up to God in prayer. For you see, the ultimate healer of all things is Jesus Christ our Lord. Thanks be to God.